Sometimes I get interesting questions that are not suitable for a standard length video, but also require more depth than what I cover in a normal Q&A video. Thus, today, we are beginning a series of experiments by answering one of these in-between questions. If you have some ideas for future videos like this, go ahead and ask a question in the comments. The topic can be broad, about historical cases, ongoing international affairs, or fringe speculation about the future. The length of a good answer should range between 4 and 8 minutes, so no yes or no questions and no dissertation topics. Please make sure that they are not time sensitive. There is so much going on in the world, and I need to use these for the rare days where nothing is happening. Also, give a thumbs up to the posted questions that you like, so I know what topics have greater interest. Anyway, here is the first question for this format. It came from a random comment on my video about Iran learning that it could shut down the Strait of Hormuz and cause massive global panic. Very generally speaking, for any straightforward action that occurs in international politics, we should take as given that the participants at least should have anticipated the possibility. Any surprises, then, should come from private information about the action, not the question of whether the action could be attempted. Are there any notable counterfactuals where the action itself was surprising, and not just the private information? Yes, surprise is a common feature in international conflict without private information driving what we observe. But we are going to have to take some liberties with participants not having at least anticipated the possibility, and also think about this more in terms of outcomes rather than strategic choices. To clarify what we are not talking about here, think about, say, the start of a war due to a miscalculation. For example, I might not be sure where my opponent's red line is. If Iran is weak, I can demand more. If Iran is strong, I should demand less. If my intelligence agencies tell me that they really think that Iran is weak, then I should make the more expansive demand. But in the rare case that my intelligence agencies are wrong, the stronger version of Iran rejects my demand, and we end up at war. I am surprised, but my surprise is due to Iran having private information about its own strength that my intelligence agencies were not privy to. But that is not what we are interested in. We want surprises without private information. Well, for the full question, I am having a hard time thinking of meaningful examples where participants did not at all anticipate the possibility of the action. Perhaps the most shocking or surprising thing to ever happen in world history is the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But the Japanese government was aware that nuclear weapons, as a thing, could possibly exist. The government decided early on in the war that Japan's industrial capacity was not strong enough to justify its own version of the Manhattan Project. And speaking of the Manhattan Project, Japanese intelligence had picked up enough information to know that something was happening, even if the exact specs of Fat Man and Little Boy were unknown. For a more recent example that most of us saw unfold in real time with our very eyes, the September 11th attacks do not qualify here. There was a foiled version of that plot way back in 1995, which included a plan to hijack a plane and crash it into the CIA's headquarters. It does not take much imagination to shift the targets to other Washington facilities or the World Trade Center, especially given that one of the 1995 plotters had previously bombed the World Trade Center in 1993. Why I think that it is still fair to describe these as surprising cases is that they were assigned such low probabilities that they were receiving barely any preparation to cover. With that caveat aside, I can divide the answer to this question in terms of tactical surprise versus stochastic surprise. Regarding tactical surprise, sometimes strategies that you adopt cannot be evident to your opponent in advance, lest you set yourself up for a bad outcome. A penalty kick in soccer works like this. A striker cannot telegraph which direction he plans to kick the ball if he wants to maximize his chances of victory. Similarly, in war, you might not want to tell your opponent where you are about to attack. So German soldiers might not be surprised that the United States stormed some European beach. But I suspect that Germans on Omaha Beach were surprised that they specifically found themselves under assault on June 6, 1944. Tactical surprise is also a problem that domestic security has to confront every day. The United States has about 500 standard public airports. They are all security risks. If one is attacked, it might be surprising that that particular airport was the target, even if the general concern was not surprising. Meanwhile, stochastic surprise is a scientific-sounding way to describe pure randomness. Indeed, you might remember that I am careful to describe the expected outcome of war as an expected outcome of war. Actually, when we do the mathy version of this in professional settings, we represent the expected outcome with the variable p, intentionally conceptualized as a probability. That covers completely random things that no one expects ahead of time. Back to D-Day, it helped that Rommel was randomly away from the front lines on that particular morning, celebrating his wife's birthday in Germany. It also captures pure luck. During the Battle of Midway, for example, American dive bombers, without any premeditated intent, hit Japan while their carriers were fully armed and fueled. That made it much easier to sink the ships. Even acts of God qualify here. When the British tried to set fire to Washington during the War of 1812, nature decided to stop it short by sending a giant rainstorm through the region. Humorously, we use nature to represent an a-strategic actor making moves in game-theoretic models. Actually, there is an entire Wikipedia page on weather events during wars that you could lose an entire afternoon researching. And maybe you should go do that, because thus wraps up round 1 of this new experiment. Remember, you can ask your own questions in the comments. The topics can be broad, but they should be suitable for a 4 to 8 minute answer, and you should ensure that the questions are not time sensitive. And if you enjoyed today's experiment, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care.